Starting shortly. Buenos días, si se pueden por favor ir tomando sus asientos. Vamos a...
Please take your seats. We're just about to begin in just a few minutes.
Necesita los que van a hablar.
All right. Just take it out and I give it to Gustavo. He won't know. Oh. Hello, everyone. If you can please take your seats. We're going to start now, and I'd like to invite our close Indigenous-led funds. This panel is an opportunity to hear from 3 of these funds that have been set up and dreamed and set up and organized by Indigenous peoples with intention to support their communities. So I'm going to do a quick round of introductions, and by name and fund, and I'm going to invite our speakers to then introduce their funds themselves. So we're going to hear first from Valeria Paye, from the Podali Indigenous Fund of the Brazilian Amazon. We'll be hearing next from Dwi Karwita from the Nusantara Fund in Indonesia. And third, from Gustavo Sanchez from the Fondo Territorial Mesoamericano, or the Mesoamerican Territorial Fund. So again, it is a real pleasure to have all 3 of you, and I would like to now invite Valeria, followed by Dewey and then Gustavo, to please introduce the funds that you are here representing.
Alô? Olá, bom dia, espero que após uma semana de muita discussão,
I hope that after a week of many debates and discussions, we go back home with some very important messages and stay here today to talk about Apodali. It is a privilege to share with you this opportunity once more. We want to thank the IFP. I'm come from the Yauca-Xuidiana peoples from the Brazilian Amazonian region, from the state of Para, which borders with Suriname. My peoples is trans-border in nature, so we go beyond any borders, political borders that the states have imposed unto us. To share with you a little bit of what I do, I was the executive director of the fund. The Indigenous Fund of the Brazilian Amazonas is an initiative to build leadership, and it is also led by the Amazonian Indigenous Association called COIABI, in coordination of several indigenous coordinations in general. The process of building Apodali was a long overdue process. It has over 12 years in the making. Ever since 2011, the COIABI has been the leader of the construction of this project. And Podali exists after said construction process for the past 3 years. We officially founded our organization in 2020. And I'm keen on reminding myself of this history and to share this process because it is a process that was very long. We are talking about ancestral times even. This dialogue that we engaged on for so long meant that we managed to build what we wanted to build. And I asked myself, would it be possible to make sure of these processes a shorter thing from our own experience at the Apodali Fund? And I answered myself, that is not possible. Why? Because we have to respect our own times, the indigenous times, as it were, in order to achieve internal agreements. And when you look into the Brazilian map, you see that there are 9 states in the Amazonian forests in which we have a diversity of indigenous peoples all over. So it was not possible to shorten the time. And in this process, we wanted to create something that would be built from the consolidated stem, as it were. And what is exactly Apodali? It is our essence. It is our principles. From the beginning, it is an instrument that was created by the indigenous peoples. The entire process was done by the indigenous peoples. It is a process, therefore, for them as well. And today we see that it is managed by the indigenous peoples too. And in these peoples, we find mostly women working in favor of the organization. It is about, we have 4 directors, all women, that work in this initiative for the Amazonian forest. And what exactly is our mission? Our mission is for us to, through the fund, think of self-determination of our people. We no longer want the processes to be determined from top to bottom. We want horizontal processes so that they can be they can include the perspective of the indigenous peoples, including their demands. In Brazil, we say that to include is to have support, and that deals with the life systems that we as indigenous peoples want to strive in. And this is something that needs to be our aim. This is the path that we pursue, that we must follow, in the perspective of becoming this tool that can help our kin in the lands in which they might find each themselves, whether they are in different spheres or not. And this is the experience that I wanted to share with you through the Apodali Amazonian Forest Indigenous Fund. Thank you for your attention. This is truly an important topic to talk about and to make sure that the indigenous times of building are being respected, including our own perspectives. And this is what Podali brings in, and all of the funds bring in, and this is something that we need to respect.
Tell us about your fund.
Yeah, thank you, Lourdes. Hello, everyone. My name is Dewi Kartika. I am the Secretary General of Consortium for Agrarian Reform, agrarian reform movement based in Indonesia. So, together, the 3 organizations, there's AMAN, Indigenous Peoples Alliance of the Archipelago, and then my organization KPA and Friends of the Earth Walhi. Together, we created last year Nusantara Fund. So, in a simple way, we can say that Nusantara Fund is national alliance where the indigenous movement organizations, agrarian reform, peasants movement organization, together we try to build direct funding mechanism for indigenous people and local community. So it's still newly born on October 2022. And now we are in the phasing of pilot phase. We are able to support 30 pilot project for indigenous people and local community. So this is the 3 organizations who established Nusantara Fund, AMAN, KPA, and WALHI, Friends of the Earth. So because the challenge we have in the social movement, we are in the fragmentation situations between among the civil society organizations. So the 3 of organizations, these grassroots movement organizations, try to build alliance on how to make sure that the direct funding can be happen in Indonesia and reach the really remote areas of indigenous and farmers who are still facing the challenge on how to get recognitions of our territory, and also the fight of peasants or smallholders, landless, to get agrarian reform agenda to be implemented in our country. Next. So this is basically our missions to promote and implement simple and strong direct funding support for IPLC, and then also how to make sure that the resource can be reached out by the grassroots organizations in local level, indigenous community in village and sub-village level, and also how to empower and to strengthen the economic model that drive by the local community and local organizations, and also how to urge the government role in protecting and ensure the territories are belong to the indigenous people and local community. Next. So this is our target. This is a quite big target. This is our 10 years target in the future. So some of the target is how to make sure that there is a protections and recognitions on indigenous people forest recognitions and agrarian reform in our areas, and then also how to map the territories of the people, because we just reached 15 million to be mapped, and now still rest to be coming in the futures, and also how to support indigenous people and local community to have education center in the village level to make sure the women have access on informations and strengthen their capacity. Next. And this is the governance of our fund, Nusantara Fund. You can see that there is a 3 organization become the Nusantara Fund Council. And we have also, beside the management unit as the operating system, we have also the endowment. In the future, we are planning to build the trust fund or endowment fund to make sure that the sustainability of the financial fund. And then there is also grievance mechanisms to receive and to handling complaint over the violations of our fund safeguard. And then I think in this mechanism, the importance to highlight, to emphasize the terminology of indigenous people and local communities is include peasants movement, peasants community, smallholder, fisherfolk, small fisheries, and women in rural who are live in the most vulnerable situation. So that's the meaning of indigenous people and local community for our mechanisms. Next. And then this is how the flow of Nusantara Fund, but I don't want to really in detail with this flow, but in our experience, the important to have indigenous peoples and local community-led fund is really to be a bottom-up process on how to building the plan to have a collective consensus among the indigenous peoples and local community, and also proactive assistances and meaningful facilitations from the system, so there is no long bureaucracy and can be effective but still accountable system. Next. So this is the range of Nusantara Fund current implementation. We are in the implementing piloting phase. We are able, this year, we are able to support 30 pilots in 20 provinces. You can see in Sumatra Island, in Java Island, in Kalimantan Island, and also Papua Island and Nusa Tenggara Island. So this is only in 6 months, now still ongoing. And this is also the piloting phase we used to improve our system to make sure that this is really friendly and goes directly to the grassroots and local indigenous people community in really rural areas and village level. Next. So this is the one of the example how we strengthen to make sure the women peasants have the academy agrarian reform in village level, and then integrative farming, organic farming, combination of organic farming and livestock. Next. Support the peasants union, and also how to map and capacity building on finance, administrative, and also how to empower the economic model in grassroots level. And then, so I think the let's join and let's support our movement on how to make sure that the 1% can be changed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dewey. I think this is another example of a fund that is being set up in alliance with the movement, and that is embracing a bottom-up approach and how you are putting together and thinking about from the governance and engaging those you're going to be working with. So we'll be hearing next from Gustavo. Would you like to share about the Mesoamerican Fund?
Gracias, Lourdes. Bueno, en primer lugar quisiera comentar que me siento muy honrado, muy afortunado de estar
Fortunate
en este lugar,
to
en
be in
esta
this particular
bella
location in the
tierra de
beautiful
Yucatán,
city
y
and land of the Maya
que he
people.
aprendido mucho de
I
lo que
have
han
learned so
compartido
much from
generosamente todas las
everything that you have
experiencias
shared
en
in the
estos
various experiences
días.
throughout
Quiero
the week.
comentarles
I want to
que
tell you that
en este momento
currently
estoy liderando el proceso de establecimiento
I am the leader of establishing the
mesoamericano.
Mesoamerican Territorial
Sin
Fund.
embargo,
However,
soy
I am also the chair of a network of organizations that deal with forestry practices in Mexico that group up organizations of indigenous peoples, but also local communities.
como parte
As
de
part of this network that is called the MOCAF network, we are part of a platform of about 11 organizations, indigenous and non-indigenous local communities, and some of them even mixed,
entre esta región comprendida
in the region that includes Mexico and Panama. We have about 11 organizations spread out through Guatemala, Nicaragua, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Panama.
10 años me parece que los procesos
The processes have existed for over 10 years, so we also believe that said processes are the same that have been used by Valeria and Dewi as well. And it's been 10 years in which we have known each other, we know our differences. We, of course, have to overcome our natural mistrust of each other, but we also need to understand, find a common ground, and see exactly where we can articulate our efforts. One of these common affairs is that we coincided upon the fact that there has to be a right to access of funding against climate change and many other types of funding as well for local communities and indigenous peoples. And although we have coincided in time with this narrative of direct investment, of territorial investment, as it were, our process, however, comes from beyond. And we are now at the end stages of our pilot program by bolstering our institutionality within the fund, Mesoamerican Fund. And we're working mainly in 3 axes. The first is to bolster our governance within the communities and within the organizations. We believe that there is no life plan that could be successful if you do not have strong organizations. We also are working on strengthening the rights that we are owed in a way. We are convinced that if we do not have strong, solid rights, our entrepreneurial efforts, as it were, and life plans will be met with precarious situations. And the last one has to do with indigenous community economy and communal economy, and it has to do with the narrative that we are trying to bring into the table through building territorial committees that will allow us to work with the land, and the aim of which is to make sure that the stakeholders within a specific location, for them to decide what will their priorities be. We do not want the boards to decide for them, regardless of their good intentions. We don't want that. So we're trying to provide them with this empowering feeling, as it were. We call upon our allies, friends, funds, and foundations so that they can see us as partners. We are truly convinced that the communities are investing for quite a while in non-monetary resources that are just as valuable, equitable to what you as funders in your philanthropic endeavors invest. So what we want is a co-investment with an equal relationship, and we don't want to be subjugated anymore. We're trying to support strategic processes to inspire our governments, our allies, to invest in us, in something that can be scalable and can be repeated, And in this way, I believe that both philanthropic efforts and indigenous-led funds have an opportunity to inspire many stakeholders in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gustavo. Yet another example of how can we prioritize what indigenous communities can do so that they can guide as to what types of support they need and that things don't happen from the top to bottom.
A question, and I'm going to start with Valeria. And Valeria, the question that I have for you is, what role do indigenous-led funds play in responding to indigenous communities' calls for justice, redistribution, and self-determination?
Alô? Oi. Bom, é uma pergunta bastante desafiador para todos que estamos aqui, essa trazida a mim. E creio que, ao longo dessa semana, houve apontamentos, né, nesta direção, de clarearmos que direção queremos seguir. Mas o papel do
Just to clarify where we
fundo
want to go. However, the
para
role
responder
of the funds to be able to respond to the justice needs, the redistribution needs, and self-determination needs,
por uma questão importante.
it goes through something an important matter, which is
Essas iniciativas, olhar
to look at those initiatives,
de fundos indígenas
the tools
liderados por
of indigenous-led funds,
como uma oportunidade.
as an opportunity.
Entre nós, né?
An opportunity that we have amongst ourselves, and throughout all this time when we ask ourselves during the debates, how can we support them? Well, that's how. Where, how? So we always say we have, our organizations have our back, and many organizations have been named. In Brazil, we do have many organizations that accompany us, but unfortunately, it's not enough. That is why we had to create the current tools. So I see this as something that the indigenous peoples are bringing to the relationship, having the chance of being together and contribute to add using the instrument of the funds. But if we want the funds to be able to respond to justice needs, distributions, redistribution, self-determination, we truly need to think about how to transform the theory into practice, to truly decolonize. That is a process, and for instance, philanthropy is something that cannot forget that philanthropy comes from colonization processes. With colonization rules, philanthropy is just but a small part of our historical relationship. How can we overcome that so that true justice, redistribution truly happen, justice is truly served? How can we guarantee self-determination? It is important to overcome the paradigm, the principle, and at some point during the reflections we heard people say that what is philanthropy? And many definitions were given. To me and to many indigenous peoples, there's no word philanthropy because it is not necessary. This is not the word that we need. You would need to understand where Western philanthropy comes from. It has nothing to do with our systems and processes. What we need to say is that philanthropy for us is only trust and reciprocity, systemic thinking, but that is how we've always been. That's how we have always operated and organized ourselves. So inequality is not center stage, while inequality in other processes is used as if one thing depended on the other and one is subordinated to the other. So the challenge here is to change this perspective, this mindset, the whole process, so that our relationships are more equal and trustworthy. Trust is necessary so that we can have and keep on being able to comply our mission. That is the opportunity that all of us here have with the use, well, the good use of funds. But trust has to come first, as well as a revaluing of the role indigenous peoples lead in their environments, the defense of nature and biodiversity. Where is biodiversity in indigenous lands? So we need to look at all of that and to make certain that beyond all the rhetorics, specific concrete actions led by indigenous leaders is materialized, and the support is something that is reciprocal, reciprocity, respect to the role is important. So this is how I see that indigenous funds, where indigenous leaders are present, then the road is shorter for us to have access to justice and to guarantee redistribution and strengthen our own self-determination processes of indigenous peoples around the world. Thank you.
I'd like to invite now Dewey with the next, share your thoughts on the next question. If you can share, indigenous-led models of giving embrace indigenous values, and I would love to invite you to share how is Nusantara's indigenous model different from non-indigenous funders?
Yeah. I want to say not differences, but uniqueness and the strengthness of Nusantara Fund. First is about the inclusivity, because this is dedicated for indigenous peoples and also local communities such as peasants organizations, grassroots movement organizations, folk and women organizations in local level in rural areas. So that's, I think, the inclusivity that we bring in Nusantara Fund. And then we are come from the historical background that already long, since like over than 4 decades. So our mission is to make sure that Nusantara Fund is not, in the issue, is not direct from the global issues that sometimes like forcing us as a movement to follow the trend of issue in global, but really rely on the daily basis need that the struggle needs, because sometimes the trend in the global or in regional is not connected with the needs and the really reality in the ground. So we make sure that Nusantara Fund is really based on the urgent need, the relevancy of how this fund can be really improve the quality of livelihood, improve our fighting in land rights and indigenous people recognition. And then Nusantara Fund also based on trust building, because sometimes in our experience, donor agency can sometimes doesn't have trust on people, movement organizations. So I think our relation with partner in local and grassroots movement organization is based on trust building. Otherwise, if there is no trust building, we cannot achieve our goal to have direct funding mechanism that really rely on in the grassroots level. And then also the uniqueness is in the phase of piloting process, designing and planning is really bottom-up process. So it's really the indigenous community peasants unions, fisherfolk, women in the rural areas is really designing and then get the technical support and meaningful facilitations to make sure that the system, the template even is not really full of complexity, because sometimes it's many terminology that brought by the global trend is really strange for us. So sometimes it's not connected with our problem. So we make sure that the bottom-up process and consensus collectively is really fundamental in our designing process and implementing it. And then in our Nusantara Fund, we have also principle how to meet with donor partners or philanthropy partners who really wants to achieve the same spirit with us, the same goal with us, how to really reach and to protect and to strengthen indigenous and local community struggle. And then I think, Nusantara Fund really wants to make sure that at the end, we want to achieve that indigenous territory are recognized and agrarian reform will be implemented, and there is reducing land grabbing challenge that become always come to our struggle. So I think that's the uniqueness and the strength of Nusantara Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Dewey. Gustavo, a question for you is, how does investing in indigenous-led fund moves the philanthropic community to decolonize philanthropy?
Gracias, Lourdes. Es una pregunta con muchas aristas. Yo quisiera comentar que me parece que los procesos de colonización han sido diversos. Tal vez los territorios, las comunidades, los pueblos, hemos pasado por varios procesos similares y no necesariamente son los más evidentes. También ha habido
And sometimes it's not quite evident. There are some processes of indigenous peoples who have oppressed other indigenous peoples, or indigenous communities who have oppressed other indigenous
Me
communities.
parece que dependiendo
So depending on
bueno, que puede haber muchas variaciones
the
sobre
fact that
estos
there are
procesos
many
dependiendo de la
variations
historia, el
of the
territorio,
variables, it depends on the place,
pero me
the time,
parece
and
que todos
everything.
tienen en común
What they all
que
share
se impone
is that there was an imposition
pensamiento
of a type of
hegemónico,
thinking, the
ya sea
hegemonic
por la
thinking.
fuerza militar
It
o
was
la
done through
fuerza
military
económica,
force or economic force.
que se establecen términos de intercambio
The
desiguales
terms
donde
of exchange
el
were
norte o el
unequal.
centro
The
va a
north
estarse alimentando
was getting the better half of the
de
pie
la periferia.
and was taking advantage of the rest. And there's also a lot of patriarchy and exclusion involved.
Lo contrario a la diversidad.
Quite the
Me
contrary
parece
of respecting
que
diversity.
si identificamos estas
If we
características
can
de
identify
los procesos
the characteristics of colonialism processes,
repensar
colonialistic
junto
processes,
con
then we
todos
could
los aliados
break it
lo
down,
que
and
debemos
with
de
our
construir para tener
allies,
un
we
nuevo
could think about how
ecosistema
to
financiero
reconstruct a new
mucho más
financial
equitativo,
ecosystem that is
democrático.
fairer, more
Me parece que
democratic,
tenemos que,
less abusive.
primero,
But
frente a la
for that,
hegemonía,
vis-a-vis
tener diversidad.
hegemony, diversity.
En la Alianza Mesoamericana de
In the
Pueblos y Bosques,
Mesoamerican
estamos
Alliance of
tratando,
Peoples and
como ya
Forests,
señalaba hace rato,
as I mentioned
de
before,
dejar de lado las
our attempt is
diferencias
to
que
try
tenemos
to
entre
not to
pueblos
focus so
indígenas
much
y
on the
comunidades
differences
locales
of the indigenous
para
peoples and
sumar
communities,
esfuerzos y construir
but rather
estrategias
try to find
conjuntas.
joint
También
strategies and joint
creemos que
efforts.
frente a la visión
When
patriarcal,
facing the
el
patriarchal
acceso
vision,
directo de las
direct
mujeres al
access of women
financiamiento
to
es un
financing is
elemento
an important
fundamental para
thing that has to be
empoderarlas
fostered to
e
empower
ir
them
cerrando la brecha
and close
de
the
desigualdad.
gender gap.
Y en el tema del
And
pensamiento tenemos
speaking
que
about
desaprender
our
juntos muchas
mindsets,
cosas.
we have to teach one another
Quisiera
how to
decir
deconstruct our
que me parece que
mentalities.
la
I believe
filantropía
that
tiene una
philanthropy
responsabilidad más bien
has
fuerte
a
porque
responsibility,
muchos de los
has a role to
aprendizajes
play,
en
because
materia
many of the
de
teachings
reporte, de
that we have about how
administración que
to
tienen
manage, how to
actualmente
report,
nuestros propios
how we
cuadros
treat
técnicos se han
beneficiaries,
formado en
all of
ese
those
esquema
ideas
de que es
were
más importante
embedded
la factura que el
considering
proceso.
that an invoice is more important than the human
Y
being.
aún muchas veces hasta
Than the
en eventos
process.
de este tipo
And even in
vemos a
events like
nuestros
this, where
compañeros
we're
administrativos que
supposedly
tenemos que
being
comprobarle
deconstructed,
que
we are
efectivamente
required,
desayunamos para que
okay,
él pueda,
the invoice,
o comimos
and
para que
you
él
need
pueda
to give
tener
me the
cubiertos
fiscal tax
los
code,
gastos
and
de
this
per
doesn't
diem,
match in your
o
per
que
diem,
si
and
tuvimos que pagar una maleta
why
extra,
did you
tenemos
bring
que
an
tener
extra
varios
suitcase?
comprobantes
You
para
need to,
acreditar que,
you are going to
que
pay
eso
this
fue.
on your own, or you need
Ese
to
es
bring
un
the
ejemplo
papers.
de
You know what I'm
este
saying?
tipo de pensamiento
We're still very
que ha
much
sido
embedded in the
hegemónico de
system.
cómo debe de ser
We
la
don't
administración
even
para que sea
notice
transparente.
how
Y otro
we could be
tema
different.
que colocaba
And
hace unos días en
a
el
few
tercer
days
encuentro de
ago,
fondos
during the
indígenas
third encounter
es el
of indigenous
concepto
funds,
de
we spoke
conflicto de
about
intereses.
conflict of
Cada vez
interest.
más estos fondos que estamos formados
The
por organizaciones indígenas y
indigenous-led
comunitarias
funds
nos enfrentamos
are
con la narrativa de
increasingly
algunos de
facing
nuestros
the narratives
amigos
of our
en el
friends
sentido de que el
in the
concepto de
sense
conflicto
that
de
the
intereses
concept of
implica que
conflict
quien
of interest
gestiona un
means that
recurso
whoever
debe de
gets the
estar
resource has to be
desvinculado de las
completely
comunidades, de los
isolated,
pueblos
not connected, neutral,
a los
above
cuales va a
all
llegar
the communities where
ese recurso.
the money is going
Entonces,
to get.
necesitamos repensar varios
Is that even
conceptos,
possible?
entre ellos
We
el de
need to
conflicto de
rethink
intereses,
about conflict of
porque no
interest because
necesariamente
the presupposition there is rather untrusting. If we indigenous peoples are capable of handling our own financing, and if we don't follow Western rules, they think that we are not being trustworthy. We have our own ways of proving trust to one another, trust us. And equality, we need to be equal partners and acknowledge that we need to lose all of the labels. Remember the label of a financial intermediary? That is a pejorative term.
Que debemos de
to be
considerar
perfectly honest,
a quienes hacen esta vinculación
people
entre un
who
mundo y
do the
otro,
connection between one world and
precisamente
the other,
como esa llave que abre puertas,
must
que
remember
vincula,
that
que acompaña y no
our role is only
necesariamente
to
como alguien que le
accompany,
pone
but
un
it is not up
overhead
to
o un
us to
sobreprecio a una
create an
a una
overhead
gestión.
for a managerial
Me parece que
process.
hay mucho sobre lo cual podríamos
There are many other
platicar
things we
de
could
las
discuss
prácticas,
about
coloniales,
colonial practices
pero
that are
tenemos
very
que
much
hacerlo
alive and
juntos.
kicking, but we have to do it together.
Tenemos que capacitarnos
We need to
juntos
train
y
one
no
another,
pensar que uno
and
tiene
we
la
should
razón absoluta
have
y el
faith
otro
that
tiene
no
que
one
tomar
is fully
notas
right
para
and
aprender a
superior,
hacer
and
las
the others
cosas
should
de
follow suit and learn because they know
determinada manera.
less.
Muchas
There's
gracias,
no
Lourdes.
best way, there's no single way to do things. Thank you, Lourdes.
I don't know about you, but I think all three of them have shared some key messages that I think are lessons for us to share more widely across philanthropy, particularly I think moving away from this framework of who's an intermediary and who's not. And I think in the context that IFIP views all of you, we view it with a sense of respect, embracing you in our community, and definitely as part of movements that are there to respond as rather than direct how funding needs to go and for which priorities needs to happen to support indigenous communities. We have time against us at the moment. I know many of you may be waiting for the closing and then the side visits, but I'd like to ask our presenters here to please share maybe some closing thoughts that you'd like to leave this audience with. And I'd like to start, Valeria.
Olá, mais uma vez. Acho que temos muitas coisas, cada um, a partir desta semana, né? Mas a mensagem que eu queria novamente trazer nessa fala final é da importância das relações, nossas relações, serem menos assimétricas, né? E desiguais. Temos que caminhar para superar esses processos. Eu acho que, a partir das experiências que estamos aqui vendo, os fundos, né, dentro dessa discussão da filantropia, pode ser um caminho. Vamos dialogar? Vamos sentar? Sem essas assimetrias de que um é mais do que o outro, né? Resgatar um pouco o equilíbrio entre essa diversidade, porque todos nós, cada um de nós tem um papel importante, e as contribuições que cada um tem, né, sobre o tema sobre o nosso espaço, essa nossa casa, o nosso planeta, os cuidados, né? Então é preciso a gente construir. E que as parcerias sigam esse princípio de confiança. Precisamos retomar a questão da confiança, de acreditar uns nos outros, né? Com isso, quero talvez dizer como que a gente redesenha isso para pensar a diminuir a questão da própria burocracia e incorporar aqui dentro princípios, visões, outras dos povos indígenas. Então, de nossa parte, eu acho que é um pouco essa mensagem que eu queria deixar, e que nós vamos seguir em frente, né? A busca pelo bem viver de todos nós, de nossos povos indígenas e da nossa humanidade, de que cada um estamos aqui. Né? Então, com isso, quero dizer na Pofa quer dizer na minha língua, muito obrigado e que fiquem bem. Obrigada, Lourdes.
Obrigada. What I just said, that means take care of each other and be
Nusantara
good.
Fund, Nusantara meaning archipelago for us. So Nusantara Fund really wants to make sure that our archipelago through Nusantara Fund will be existed in the future, so our generations will still can see Indonesia as archipelago country that really belong to the indigenous peoples and local community who are in very many years in the past has been struggle to really to have fully recognized by the government and wants to protect their territory from the danger of pro-investment model development that come to our country. So I think last but not least, I will calling for all here, the friends, to support our initiative and to make sure that indigenous people recognitions, indigenous people's rights and agrarian reform can be really implemented through this Nusantara Fund and really need to strengthen each other. And I really want to see that indigenous people and local community-led fund will be growing in many countries, in national level, in regional level, and global, so that our missions, our together joint missions will be implemented. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Gracias, Dewi. Bueno, yo quisiera hacer un llamado
I want to call
a
upon
que imaginemos construir
you
un
to
nuevo
imagine
ecosistema financiero
building a new
donde todos
financial
tengamos,
ecosystem in
cabida
which we
y
all
necesitamos hacerlo
are
juntos.
fit for it and we
También,
can all prepare it together.
necesitamos inspirar
We
a
need to
otros.
inspire others too.
Me llevo una impresión muy
I
alentadora de la diversidad
leave
que hay en la
this
filantropía,
event knowing
de
that
su
there is so
potencialidad,
much
pero
diversity in philanthropy
es
and that there's a
difícil
lot
que
of
la
potential that can be
filantropía y
tapped
los
into,
fondos
but it is
que
sometimes difficult to
participamos
have the
en
funds
este
and
tipo
the
de movimientos
philanthropic
podamos
endeavors to
tener
find
la
a common
solución a
ground
todas
and to
las
find a solution
dificultades. Sobre
to
todo
all the
necesitamos
difficulties that
inspirar
our
a
peoples
nuestros
face.
gobiernos
So we
a
need to
que
convince
no se
and
desentiendan de
exhort
sus
our governments to
responsabilidades
not
de inversión en la
leave
naturaleza.
us on the wayside, especially
El otro tema
when it comes
es,
to the investment
hay que
in
pensar el
in
financiamiento de
nature.
manera
And we
amplia.
need to think of funding
Estamos
as
muchas
a more
veces
ample
empezando por
concept.
manejar
Sometimes
donativos,
we
pero
just
hay
manage
experiencias
donations,
también
But there
de
have been experiences
ahorro y
of
crédito comunitario
having
que
credit
tiene
or
un
maybe even
potencial
savings
enorme.
that
En
also
México,
have a
por
lot of
ejemplo,
potential
la
and we
mayor
have yet to
inversión
explore it. In
extranjera
Mexico, for
no
instance,
la hace la iniciativa privada.
the most of
La
the
hacen los
investment coming from
migrantes que
abroad
envían
does not come
remesas
from
a sus
private sector.
comunidades.
It
Y
comes
ellos
from the
tienen un
remittances
enorme
that come
potencial
from the
de
workers
ahorro y
elsewhere, and
de
therefore
fondear
the indigenous
créditos.
communities can
Y
fund their own
finalmente,
credits and can engage in
aceptemos
savings too.
a los otros,
And we
la
need to also
diversidad. En
accept
los
diversity,
territorios
to accept
habemos
each other
muchos
within the
actores,
territories and
muchas
lands.
colectividades
Within these lands, we have a
indígenas
lot of
y de otro
collectives,
tipo.
tribes,
Me parece que
ethnicities, ideas
esto
even.
es
So
fundamental
it is a
para
fundamental
articular
aspect to accept
alianzas
each other
mucho más
in order to
amplias y
create
poderosas.
and articulate
Muchas
better
gracias.
alliances
Muchas
for the
gracias.
future as well. Thank you very much.
To the panelists. I look forward to getting to know each of your funds even more as we start this process, this collective process of discussing and taking our time to also discuss and build the trust as we form an alliance of a global alliance of indigenous-led funds. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Lourdes. El itacate. Gracias. Muchas gracias, Lourdes.
Now I'd like to invite to come please join me, Loretta Taylor of True Cost Initiative, who is one of our planning committee members. Our board member, Naomi Lanoy, to please come up. And then we do have another member of the Permanent Forum from Asia attending the IFEP conference. May I please invite also Na Min to please come up to also share some final words about the conference and any messages you would like to give.
Can everyone, yes, you can hear me. Great. So I have a bit of a East Coast / Chilango accent, so if I mispronounce some words or names, it might happen. So thank you, Lourdes. My name is Loretta Taylor, and I'm the program officer at True Cost Initiative. And for those of you who may not be familiar with TCI, we work with communities, other funders, and creative leaders to drive better corporate behavior and legal systems on a global scale. And it's an honor to stand before all of you to give the closing remarks on behalf of the IFIB Planning Committee. So thank you for the invitation. Just personally, after these 3 days, I'm leaving this conference feeling like I'm part of a beautiful community. I'm leaving with great admiration and appreciation for the power of vulnerability and the sharing of lived experience. And attending these sessions has been a process of learning and unlearning. So learning how to be a great ally, a great listener, someone who respects the beauty and power that Indigenous communities show to the world every day. Learning that Indigenous community is not homogeneous, yet connected in its right to self-determination, cultural and language preservation, and the right to just be, because I believe that everyone deserves the basic right to just be and exist. And I've also had to unlearn harmful colonial mindsets that I didn't even know that I internalized. So I feel challenged to not just talk about the colonizing, funding, and our mindsets, but also to follow up those intentions with actions. So I hope that everyone here also felt that, and that this experience has been equally meaningful for you. It's been the committee's pleasure to see all of your friendly faces and your enthusiasm during these past 3 days. So thank you so much for being here and for attending. And there's lots of other things to give, because there's a lot of people who made this conference possible. So to Shanda and Lourdes, Thank you. And the entire IFIP team, without the hard work that you put into this, I think it was a success, and it's because of the hard work that you put into this. And I believe that because of your efforts, we're ready to go out and shake up philanthropy. Yeah. As the executive director of my organization would say, we're going to shake up philanthropy. So, and thank you to everyone who facilitated or was a panelist during the sessions, because we want to use your knowledge and put that knowledge collectively to use, and turn it into action. And to the translators, for all of your work, ensuring that no one had to face any language barriers and that everyone could participate no matter what language they spoke or understood. And to the tech team, for your valuable support with putting up presentations, helping with sound. This also wouldn't be possible without you. And then to my fellow committee members, here's where that East Coast Chilango accent might come in again. So, Katrine Wild, Kim Lambecker, Paloma Abregu, Melissa Barrena, Carlota Diaz, Paulina Gonzalez, Susana Cavazos, Alejandra Guardunio Martinez, and Casey Box. It was a pleasure to work alongside you, and I hope we get to do this again next year, all together. And then last but not least, to the people at Hacienda Misne, for the staff, for their attentiveness. We were a large group, and I think they showed us such kindness and grace. It's a lot of hungry people, so a lot of food to get out, a lot of agua de Jamaica and tamarindo to serve, so we really appreciate you. And I'll end by saying that I hope you all have a safe trip back to your respective homes and that you made some great connections. I know I've made wonderful connections, and I hope that there's a day where we can talk about funding not from a place of scarcity but from abundance, and that not that these events won't be necessary, but the nature of these events and conversations will shift and change. But until then, I hope we continue learning and unlearning, so thank you all.
You are reminded to put back your translation devices.
With respect to the Mayan community, who with a lot of love prayed and welcomed us to this land, with respect to IFIP, who have for many months planned this particular conference and given us an opportunity to meet in Merida, with respect to every one of you who have shared your thoughts and voices with us, we say a big thank you for making IFIP Global Conference 2023 such a big success. We have come to the end of this session, and I ask that each one of us take with us the spirit and the love within which this session has created amongst us. And with a lot of humility, I kindly request Lourdes to consider Africa as the next place to hold this conference. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to be part of the conference here. And this is the time for a closing remark. But as for the Permanent Forum member, for me, I started engaging this year. So it's the first time for me, it's like opening remark. The first time I have to give on behalf of this Asia Permanent Forum member. And you all know that UNDRIP has a declaration of this UNDRIP has already 15 years until now. And then I also started working with Indigenous people movement in the year of 2007 when UNDRIP is declared at the United Nations. And after
finding out about this important declaration, I go back and talk to my community back in the country. And stay in the country of a closed door, I just realized that many people, indigenous community, we didn't even know there is rights there, what is happening at the global level. For us to start working for indigenous people movement, we even have to start with awareness raising that we have rights that is happening at the international level. And that's why, and working over the past 15 years, what I learned is that for us, what is happening there at the international level, for us to enjoy our right on the ground, we need people on the ground to stand up and walk so that right is not coming to us. We have to stand up so that we got our rights. That's the thing that's important about people, indigenous people walking on the ground to have access to this direct asset funding. And then you may all aware about climate change, that REDD+ mechanism is established. At that time, indigenous people right away say, we need rights. Without no right, no REDD. We say like that. And then back in the country and working with the community, we also realize that community sometimes they have even no rights because of so many discrimination and problem we face. So when we say that we also need rights to stand up for right as well. This is the situation we face. But after all, I believe that together we stand, we can defend. And with the philanthropy community, we want to say that amidst the crisis happening and facing problem at the global level, we are in the same boat because we are asking for support to stand for our rights and improve our rights. But at the same time, we are the solution to what is happening, the problem to the world. That's why we are contributing back to what you are contributing to us as well. This is an important part that I want to highlight. And then you may also know that when we talk about direct asset funding, there are so many barriers. There are discrimination and pressure for us not to be able to access banking system, not to be registered as an organization. That's we face problem on the ground. But you have to wait and see that how creative we are, how much we are overcoming all the barrier we have, and you have to walk in hand with us in trust for us to be able to stand as well. And then another thing we want to have is just to echo from what I learned yesterday. In addition to the financial resources, what we need is you are standing with us together when we have our campaign, be part of our petition and all the message we want to reach out for the world to hear. You can be part of this as well. And I just want to give one example as final closing, that when I come here, I put in the weather in the phone, writing Mexico. And then it showed temperature 26 degrees. I bring all the warm clothes with black clothes. And when I arrive here, you know the weather, so I have very difficulty to adapt. So although we may, so that can happen in life. It means that even though you have a good intention, or even though you prepare the best, there can be things that can go wrong. So when we work with indigenous people, please listen more to us, and then we can be working most effectively. So we are in Mexico, Merida, a country with M. So I want you to remember 3M. The first thing is to help support indigenous movement on the ground, movement. The second thing is momentum. Keep your momentum of working together with us to speed up your momentum. The final thing is let's marching toward together for self-determination of indigenous people. Thank you.
Right. So we are coming almost to the close of our program, but I'd like to invite, I don't know if the Kellogg team is here, and I'd like to invite Veronica to please come up. and Alejandra, who until recently was also with Kellogg. No empiecen. Okay, so I don't think all of you know, but when I started at IFIP. I was on the board, and I started just weeks before our regional conference in Lima. And I met these two beautiful women who were also studying their relationship with IFIP, not only as members, but as funders. And they came at a moment where we had a leadership transition and then also a new roadmap on where IFIP wanted to go. They had also given us just a grant just before I came in with very different objectives. And it was my job as a new ED to have a conversation with Ale and Veronica about the changes just as they had just given us a grant. And all to say, they are both embody a great example of what a true partnership means, because they trusted the process, they believed in IFIP, and not only did they let us change and work with you to change the objectives, but also then they came back and they gave us a larger grant, a multi-year grant. So on behalf of IFIP, I want to honor you with something from Peru to bring to your office, and to remember this special bond and relationship and the immense trust and friendship and guidance, but most importantly, just another approach of doing philanthropy. So I want to thank you, and I also want to thank you, the Kellogg Foundation, for believing in us, because they came through at a very challenging moment at IFIP. So thank you very much.
Bueno, pues no solo quiero agradecerte, Lourdes, por recordar este camino que nos trajo en esa conversación para llegar
especially that conversation that brought us all the way here. I remember when we had the conversation for that second grant, we thought exactly what was needed at the IFIP. And in this dialogue of thinking, we understood that we need to build this together, and that it is not only on the IFIP's side that they had to work, it is all members. We need to create a space like this one to challenge ourselves and to continue to tread the path of creating philanthropy, of continue to question what we actually need. And at the moment, we were so happy to understand that Mérida could be that space, and it took us years, it took a village, and we managed to achieve it. And the most hopeful thing is that we have a new challenge. It has been put on the table, the fact that we can once again meet up in another geography or location and continue to build together what we have. The most valuable thing, therefore, is to work together, to add up, and to continue to dream it and build it. This is a path that has taken a toll. The efforts of so many people have been invested, and I have nothing but gratitude for all of you, because you made this space possible, these reflections, these thoughts, and these forms of enlightenment, and let's continue to meet along the way.
Esto puede ser un poco emocional.
I know this can be very emotional.
el
and
tono del
Lourdes set the
momento.
tone for the
Y
occasion.
pues yo también quiero
And I
agradecerte,
also want to
Lourdes, la
thank you,
oportunidad.
Lourdes, for the opportunity that you gave us.
Pues han sido
Today,
muchos cambios, ¿no?
we've
Han
seen
sido
so many
muchos cambios los que
changes.
todos hemos vivido y la pandemia nos
And the
vino
pandemic
no sé, a revolver muchas cosas, a
managed
ponernos
to
muchas barreras,
create chaos
a pensar
and put a lot of barriers up and
nuestro
forced
propio
us
ser
to
en el lugar en el que
rethink
estamos,
who we
también,
are
¿no?
as a
A
being, where
cuestionarnos
we
muchas
are, and to
cosas.
question ourselves
Y el que
on everything.
lleguemos aquí, hayamos hecho
And
el
the fact
esfuerzo
that we
todos
are
para llegar
here and
aquí
that we
y
made an
estar
effort to be
celebrando
here
este momento
and
y
to
este
celebrate this
cierre,
momentous
pues creo
occasion
que es
and this
motivo
closing
para todos de
ceremony
estar contentos.
is
Esto es una
nothing
celebración
short but a
y
celebration,
pues,
and
la posibilidad de crear un
this is yet the
espacio que
opportunity
pues se
to
vino
create
soñando por mucho
a
tiempo y
space
por
that we
mucho
only
tiempo
dreamed
dentro
of
de
for
este
so
contexto
long,
donde no
especially
sabíamos
in this
qué
context
iba
in
a
which
pasar y qué
we
iba a ser
didn't really know
posible.
exactly what was going to
Yo
happen in the
personalmente
future.
pues
I
transité de lo que
personally
fue mi rol en
went
la
from was
fundación
my
y
role within
ahora
the
pues
foundation
participo
into a more
en el board de
participative
IFIP, pero esta tierra,
role
la península
and the
de
board,
Yucatán, a
but
mí
the
me ha
land
dado
of the Yucatan
las experiencias
has
más
provided the
gratificantes de
most
mi carrera.
gratifying experience of my
Y
career.
Este espacio,
And in
hoy,
this space,
esta conferencia,
this conference
ha sido un
itself
recordatorio de
is
todo
a
el poder que
reminder
podemos
of the
colectivamente
power
tener
that we
juntos,
can collectively
de
harness,
cómo todas las
how
voluntades
all the
de los que están
willpower
representados
of every
aquí con
single
sus
person in
organizaciones
here
son también las
with the
voluntades de
organizations
ustedes como
is
individuos
also the
y
willpower
eso
of
que
you
llevan a
as
sus
an individual,
organizaciones y
and that is what you bring back
enriquecen
to
las
your
misiones
organizations,
de lo que
and you
cada
make
uno de ustedes
your
hace.
missions the more
Ese
richer.
poder individual y
This
ese poder
individual
colectivo,
power, this
pues son
collective
todas
power, as
esas
it were,
cosas y todos esos
are
ejemplos
all
de los
these
que
examples
escuchamos
and
durante
things that
estos
we
días y son
have
inspiradores. Y el
been
que se
listening
pudieran
to
dar, pues,
throughout
en
these days, and
una
the
tierra
fact that they
como
could
esta,
happen in such a
pues,
rich land like this one,
en lo personal lo
at
hace
a
muy rico y
personal
haberlo
level
podido
makes it
compartir con
even
ustedes y que
richer, and
ustedes
the fact that I
todavía tengan
shared
la
this with you
posibilidad
and that
de
you have the
conocer un poquito
possibility
más de lo que sucede
of
en este lugar,
getting to know what
pues,
happens in
me
this
hace pensar que
beautiful land of
cumplimos con
ours
el objetivo.
makes me think
Entonces,
that
pues,
we
muchas gracias
accomplished
por
what
este
we
momento,
were
Lourdes.
striving
Un poco
or
inesperado y
fighting
demasiado
for.
emotivo, pero,
I
pues,
know
eso
this is an
también se
emotional
agradece
moment,
mucho
but
desde
this
el
is something
corazón,
that you
el poderlo compartir con ustedes.
something that tugs
Gracias.
at your heartstrings and something that you thank people from the heart. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're coming to a close, and I also want to acknowledge some of our wonderful people have been working very closely with us over the last month, are receiving just a small token of appreciation, and I also want to appreciate at this moment Lash and another company, Batch, for gifting us so that we can gift also a bit of care and love in those gifts that we have been sharing with these people that have been helping us and working with us and collaborating with us. But I also want to invite, and if you can please join me up here, the IFIP team. I don't know where Annabelle and Michelle are. Yeah? If I can invite them to come up to the stage, and I ask all of you, even those who are standing there and having a chat to the side, to please join me on a round of applause, because this team has been amazing. They have put so much love and care and passion, because I think we all understand and know what the reality looks like and what's still more to be done. So I appreciate each of you and for all the work that you've been doing, but also just the commitment, the laughs, the moment of sometimes unexpected moments that are thrown at us. And thank you. Thank you for also joining IFIP as part of the team, and thank you for all the love and care that you have brought into putting this conference together.
Thank you.
And thank you to Lourdes for the great leadership. So that's why we are here. Thank you, Lourdes. So just to, and you heard from our board member, Naomi has now given us the task to host our next global conference. We're doing global conferences every other year. That means that we're going to host our next global conference around the same dates in February in 2025 in Africa. So please block this week. For the U.S., it's around the President's Day holiday? The President's Day holiday. Please block this week on your calendar for 2025, February, to travel. Start working on your visas. We know how difficult some of those visas are. But yes, look forward for us to being together again, and this time learning from African communities that are often have a lot of challenges to get visas to travel. So with that, thank you very much. This is not the official end. We're going to invite Doña Margarita que me acompañe para poder cerrar de buena manera.
Margarita, come to us so that we can close this ceremony. Marcos Chef, of course, joined us on the stage. They helped us first off doing the opening ceremony, and now they're going to help us again doing the closing ceremony.
Malok Inti Tulaklesh. Buenas tardes a todos. ¿Cómo va su camino?
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing?
Yo quisiera como cerrar con tres frases que me
I want to close with
movieron
three
en
phrases
esta
that were
conferencia.
moving
Tres frases que les
in
voy a
this
decir
conference.
en el idioma maya.
Three phrases I'm going to give you in Mayan, and then I'm going to give you a reflection of the things that we learned.
Creo que todos pusimos
I believe that we all put our ancestral knowledge and local knowledge as an options of opportunity, thinking of the development of the future of our communities. We combine the thoughts that we have from the 5 continents, but we're always thinking of two basic affairs. The first is that we are part of this nature, that we love this nature, and that we want to protect and respect it. And the second thing is that we always think about the collective. We're never alone. We always think of somebody else. We're always trying to find networks and to think of said collective, and that is a common source that we have at the table. The second thing is, what did I see, what did I listen to, and what did I hear that made me emotional, but also what things that were uncomfortable to me. Something that I redirected in a way. Are we truly redirecting funding the way it should go? Sometimes it hurts to see that we are doing the effort, but we're not following the right path. But also as communities, what still hurts? What are what has bequeathed to us that still hurts, and what is uncomfortable to you? How do we become part of those things that hurt, but also solve them? It is not just about being hurt, but also in that pain to strive and enact change through that pain. If we just remain with the pain, then the pain remains as well. We need to put it into motion. And something that I said yesterday with a few of the elderly people, and they said,
si estoy llevándome algo y no se lo doy a alguien, y no se lo regalo a alguien y no hago nada con ello, ¿para qué lo tengo? Entonces la invitación justamente es esa, ¿no? ¿Cómo seguimos en este camino? Chimbal, ¿cómo caminamos juntos? Pero el camino nunca es estático. Siempre hay que aprender a moverse. Y hay un montón de tipos de caminos, no hay caminos lisos, pedregosos, altos, bajos, como son los relieves de nuestros continentes. Entonces, ¿cómo hacemos para caminar juntos, pero de verdad? ¿Cómo no se queda en una narrativa? ¿Cómo no se queda en una buena intención? ¿Cómo no se queda en solamente en encuentros y foros? ¿Cómo realmente le hacemos sentido? Generamos instrumentos para vincularnos o rompemos instrumentos para vincularnos mejor. Entonces, la invitación de este tierra maya justamente es mucho shimba, letik inkutalobo. ¿Cómo queremos
is
caminar
how do
el
we
camino
want
que nos
to
sigue en los
walk
días
the
venideros?
walk of the
Ya,
future.
Bachutz.
Thank you very much. Be well.
Algo que mis abuelos
Something that my
me han enseñado
forefathers and mothers
es
taught
que
me that was
todo lo
that
que empieza
everything that
se
starts
termina.
has an end.
Todo lo que se abre
Everything that opens
se cierra.
has to be closed.
Que el día
That day
tiene su noche correspondiente.
has a night.
En estos días,
In these days,
si alguien ha observado
if you paid
la
attention to the
noche, ¿qué
night,
hemos encontrado?
what did you find in it?
Hay tres luces que nos han acompañado
There are 3 lights that have joined us, and that
en esta época
only
se puede mirar.
in this time of year can we look at them. We started
En un día de pájaros,
on a day of songbirds, in which language, the word in and of itself,
ha sido importante,
was very important.
pero también
But
nos da identidad,
it provides an identity.
pensar
It makes us feel, think, and do things in different ways in every part of this globe of ours called Earth.
ofrendamos.
We should offer. How many trees?
Árboles ofrendamos?
How many trees do we offer?
3.
3. We made an offering to 3 of them.
El número 3
Number 3
significa
means
el fogón para mantener
the fire
de la casa.
to warm a house.
Nosotros como gestores,
We as administrators, as funders, as thinkers and experts
necesitamos
and pundits, we need to keep that warmth
para poder
to ensure
ir en el camino correcto.
that the light can lead the way into the right path. It is very important not to be astray amidst the walking, because this richness of ours is not only found in wealth, in money. This wealth is also something that you have within to give to others, to express gratitude. To express gratitude to who we are. And this is something that was bequeathed to us. This is a unique feeling that has been with us throughout the day, this strength of ours, given to us by the songbird.
Su acción es
What the woodpecker, by the woodpecker, what the woodpecker does, what does he do? He pecks into the wood, into the tree. And I want you to see this as an image. Colonialism has invaded us, and we need to peck into the tree to find the origin, the root.
hacer este ejercicio de
So let's engage in this exercise of life, as it were. How can we create an alliance? How do we physically give to each other? And like these 3 very large trees that have been our companions,
a los que les ofrendamos
these are trees that we have offered our work to, but also
los hermanos mayores
they are the elder brothers,
del lugar.
elder siblings of our land. And they're not the only ones. There's so many other trees flanking us. We're not alone,
Recuperar
but we need to recover that respect towards nature.
la tierra,
The earth
conocimiento,
has
sabiduría y
its own knowledge and wisdom if we pay close attention.
sol
The sun
tiene su propio brillo.
has its own shine and warmth,
Nosotros cada uno lo tenemos.
like we do too,
Alimentamos
if we nourish it.
el alimento de nuestra luz.
The nourishment of our light
Se compra.
is not something you can purchase.
Vende.
You can't sell it either.
Nuestro alimento
Our nourishment
se gana
is earned
con respeto,
through respect,
gratuidad,
through
con servicio.
gratitude, through service.
Que esta oportunidad de fondo
And this funding opportunity should not only serve ourselves,
sea para
should be to serve others too. That these opportunities help in bringing us closer so that they cannot foster division. Because each and every single one of us is a form of wisdom that was bequeathed to all of us, and we have a task to find it through service. There's not enough money for all the great necessities. There's not enough money to cover all the needs. What we do have is wisdom, seeds, land, soil, and our labor. This is what our forefathers and mothers have given to us so that we can develop ourselves and each other. So let's engage in an exercise of equality. Let's go down the stage and find ourselves in common ground at the same level as has been expressed by all of our peers in these talks, in this experience of sharing one another. Now please stand up and take a hand to your heart and grab the hand of another person, somebody close to you. Feel this togetherness. Let's have contact with one another. Those of you in the back, come to the front so that there are no channels leaving the energy. Let's close the circuit, the energy. Let's not be isolated. Let the barriers fall. This energy must be fluid. If there's something that I have learned in this togetherness, is that we need to look into each other's beings, that division should not be a thing. We're all united to something, to somebody. Those in the back, come to the front, don't be shy. So that we can truly become a network that flows and ebbs, and so that we can join in spirit, in thought, in objectives. We need to dare to become a network so that nobody's left behind, so that nobody is left on the wayside. Shut your eyes, close your eyes, and listen to the song of the birds, to their chirping, the sound of a wind, the oozing of the wind, the ebbing of the earth, the vibrations. Our sweat rolling on our skin, the flow of blood. We should ask for forgiveness for the times in which we have disrespected sacred water. We ask for forgiveness for the spiritual abandonment of this place, Misne Hacienda. We also ask for forgiveness for having forgotten to express gratitude to our ancestors on a daily basis for what we are, for what we think, for what we do. We should ask for forgiveness because sometimes we don't want to question ourselves in our daily activities. We ask for forgiveness for the times in which we have disrespected the sacred earth, the biodiversity, and we have cut ecosystems short. Ecosystems that have lost medicinal plants, animals, wood and foraging plants, honey producing plants. We want to thank for the words that we take home to share with our own peoples so that the next generations can be better. We need to recognize the great wealth in knowledge, in skills, this wealth that we have inherited, to spend time and share time with all the beings and spirits that surround us. We need to thank the forefathers and mothers of this place. We need to thank the East, the West, the North, and South, the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth. Our elder brothers and sisters who have embraced us, we also want to thank them for their kind embrace, for their love and care. We want to ask our forefathers and mothers of the sacred house to guide us in the sacred path that we're undertaking and the journey that we're going to take back home, so that they can be guided by the spirits of their peoples, those that have been with you all the way here as well, that everything that we have wrought today can be used to weave a blanket, a tissue of cooperation, so that we can guide the children that come to us to teach us how we can be part of this new cyclical changes that we're going through. Thank you, grandmothers and grandfathers on both sides of your family. Thank you, kin, for making us a service to our people. Those of you who had led the way, that can be a little bit challenging sometimes, but that leads us in the right direction. We want to thank you for this, for the song, as to how we sing the boons of life, but how we also sing our mirth, our hopes, and our sadness. We should feel the sacred sun that envelops everything, that there's no discrimination for the eyes of the sun and the moon, that we need to be a reflection of one another to find the way in order to create an ever-changing humanity, that we harness our wealth and that we put it at the service of the common well-being. We need to thank everything that we receive on a daily basis and everything that we are. That we need to heal our hearts from the violence, from the abuse, from disloyalty. That we can accept ourselves as what we are and correct along the path. That the energy of today can be part of what we are until we get home, back home. Heart of the sky, heart of the earth. We should say, here we are. Heart of the sky, heart of the earth, here we are. Heart of the sky, heart of the earth, here we are. Heart of the sky, heart of the earth, here we are. Thank you all for sharing this collective embrace, this hug, as it were, and that you can all go back home safe, and that you can continue to enjoy the boons of our land. And just a little piece of advice: when you go into a sacred place, always ask for permission. Do it in the way you do in your own tradition, but it is important to ask for permission because there's life in everything. Thank you very much.
Program. Just a reminder, please, to turn in your interpretation equipment before you leave to go back on your flights or go to site visits. Please, before you leave Hacienda Misne, return your interpretation equipment. Por favor, a los que tienen el equipo de interpretación antes de salir de la Hacienda Misne, tienen que ser regresados, por favor.
You need to return your devices. Don't forget
acercarse a la
to go
registración
to
y
the
devolver los equipos
registration
de
table and